that we have a great opportunity before us, that it will take all of us working together to really recognize that opportunity, that we have to move past the, past partisanship on this. This is not a political issue to be solved. This is our children's future, it's our state's economic future, and all that's really critical. And to get to how this has to be out of the political realm is important, because we'll move this forward if the legislature is willing to take the blueprint, improve upon it, and really help us create world-class schools, because Iowans want that to happen. At the same time, to turn it into a political issue is the wrong direction to go. With that, I'll plunge into, Charlie asked me to speak to where we are now with the third grade reading initiative, and so I'll just give you some of the broad outlines of that, and then we'll move on to the rest of the panel. I share Ralph Smith's sort of tone in that it is remarkable to me that we paid too little attention to children acquiring the fundamental skill of reading by the end of third grade. Without reaching this milestone, we know that children will not have success in school as they move forward in fourth grade and beyond. A lot of people have said to me, why is there a retention piece in the governor and lieutenant governor's proposal? And I'll get to that in a minute. But if you look around Iowa, and I'll get to some of our numbers and statistics, because the data is really powerful and it tells us what's going on. If you look at what's going on in Iowa by the data, we have not been helping all children, anywhere close to all children who can learn to read. And we all know that most children, the vast majority of children, can learn to read well if they get the right instruction and support both in school and out of school. We've also paid too little attention to helping advanced kids in the middle and advanced learners learn to read, children learn to read, but we're going to focus probably mostly on children who are behind this morning. The goal of the governor and lieutenant governor's initiative to have all children reading by the end of third grade is not to retain anyone. It's to promote every child into fourth grade with a solid foundation. But we do need a policy that makes it very clear to schools and parents and the broader community that they have to take responsibility for helping children get there. As Ralph Smith pointed out, the kid's in a fairly powerless position. We all know that, but we don't really act like that's the case. A kid is not reading by the time they're at the end of third grade, but who can learn to read? How are they supposed to make that happen? They can't, really. They're counting on the adults to do it. And so the value of the retention stick in the policy is that it pressures the whole system to really act looking out for children, so that we are getting more children through. Retention should never be the goal. So here's the statistic that I find most startling. 31% of Iowa's fourth graders on the 2011 National Assessment of Educational Progress, the nation's report card that all 50 states participate in, 31% of Iowa's fourth grade students read below basic. That means they're functionally illiterate. And most of them are low-income children, not all of them. Many of our minority children are in that category, but not all of them. But 31%, so nearly a third of our children are reading below basic. That NAEP test is much more rigorous than our Iowa test of basic skills. You can look at that and see most children are reading proficiently. That doesn't really give us a true picture of where we are or where we need to be. And the Casey Foundation has reported that children who read by the end of third grade are 4 times more likely to drop out of school than children who are reading proficiently. So Iowa's proposed literacy policy is modeled on Florida's. And the numbers there are really powerful. Florida may not be a model for all the things we want to do in education, but I think it is in third grade literacy. In 2002, when Florida put the policy in place that retains children who aren't reading at the end of third grade, they had an average 214 score on the National Assessment of Educational Progress in fourth grade reading. So 214 in 2002. Today, in 2011, they're at 225. Iowa's at 221. So Florida has passed us by. But that's not the only thing that should be eye-opening to us. Florida's fourth graders, 62% of them are children who receive free and reduced price lunch. 41% of our fourth graders receive free and reduced price lunch. 29% of Florida's fourth graders are Hispanic, many of whom started out as English language learners. 9% of our children in fourth grade are Hispanic. So Florida had more challenges than we do in terms of children who really have to catch up, and yet Florida is ahead of us. And everyone I've talked to in Florida, almost everyone, slight exaggeration, but most educators I've talked to in Florida, whether they're at the 30,000-foot level or classroom teachers and building principals, say that retention stick is what really pressured everybody to pay attention to this. And Florida does not, again, like our policy, Florida doesn't propose policy. Florida doesn't want to retain anyone. It retained 13.2% of kids in the first year the policy was in place. It retains, as of 2009-10, fewer than 6% of students. So most students are now going on. There are a lot of good cause exemptions for children who are new English language learners or whose individualized education plan, their needs are so severe that they're probably not going to learn to read well by the end of third grade. But they assume most children in special education will be able to read. They assume most English language learners will be able to read well. And they really work to give kids the support they need from preschool into first and second grade so that they go into third grade really ready to improve on their reading. They don't expect third grade teachers to bear the burden of suddenly teaching children to read who haven't gotten the support all along. And it's building that strong support system in place that has really helped Florida move forward. Our policy is, again, very closely modeled on what Florida has. There's an extensive outreach to parents, recognizing that parents are their first teachers and really helping parents understand the importance of that. There's a website that's devoted to parents. Parent training has gone on in that system. We've also got the potential to improve early literacy work through child care centers. If we are fortunate enough to win the Race to the Top Early Challenge Learning Grant that we'll hear about later today or tomorrow, that has a big component of building stronger education into child care settings. And if we don't win that, we need to look at how we do that anyway, because clearly that's a really important thing to do. The importance of preschool is emphasized. We know we have around 23,000 children in the voluntary preschool program. We don't know how many low-income children we're not reaching in the state, but I really want to reach out to everyone in this room who has any avenue to help figure out how do we reach more low-income children and get them into preschool in this state, because I'm sure we're not getting all of them, and we need to get every single child. All children benefit from preschool, but we really need to make sure we get all low-income children into preschool. Schools in Florida are organized, elementary schools, around reading instruction in early grades, so I think that has got to be a focus here. Assessment has to be ongoing. Intervention, when it's needed, must occur early, not waiting again for the third grade teacher to pick this ball up and fix the problem. That's really too late, and we know that. I mean, it can be done, but it's a lot harder. We need to, teachers, kindergarten teachers will tell you that they can tell who's going to have problems with reading right off the bat. So the assessments have to be ongoing, and they have to be the right assessments. The intervention has to be ongoing. Because children learn to read and with a lot of fluidity, and their needs are going to change over time. More time has to be spent on reading, at least 90 minutes a day. A lot of schools do that, but we need to make sure that's happening in all elementary schools and across many subjects, not just reading. And it needs to be reading and writing, and I think oral skills. We had a discussion early this morning about what is literacy. I was in Singapore about a month ago as part of a delegation from the U.S. looking at their high-performing schools, and it was remarkable how confident and poised their 7- and 8-year-olds are. When you ask about their schoolwork, virtually any child can stand up and tell you with real excitement about what they're doing, and they have a real comfort level with doing that, and we need to create that kind of literacy in our children as well. We need to provide teachers with the right resources, instructional strategies, and professional development, so they really have the tools they need. When I talk with leaders and teachers in classrooms across the state, they know that there's some very strong literacy work going on. They know it's not consistent enough. So the consistency is key. We want to establish a reading center that is a source of information for teachers in the classroom, as well as for principals and literacy coaches. But we need more reading coaches to work with children who need more intervention. And we need tutoring before and after school. That's where community comes in. There's a piece of the blueprint, and you'll see this as the final recommendations come out, that's really going to focus on a community initiative that will help us get more tutors and mentors into school. And we want a summer camp program for children who get to the end of third grade, and despite they didn't do well enough on the standardized test, they didn't do well enough on the alternative test, They didn't do well on the portfolio of work. Florida uses all those options. They don't just use one standardized test to see where kids are. But if kids are still not reading, they're still basically illiterate at the end of 3rd grade, but the children who can learn to read, we need to have summer camps and summer school programs for those children to try to get them into 4th grade by the time fall starts. I know when this Florida program was first brought to me as something to look at, I thought, sure, I'll take a look, but I'm not interested because retention, I just thought I had a bias against retention and thought it's too damaging to kids. But after doing a lot of research and talking to a lot of people who know a lot more than I do about this, I've come to the conclusion that it's way more damaging to send a child on to 4th grade who isn't reading well enough to learn the other subjects than it is to hold that child back. And there was something in some of the literature that Charlie sent me about how retention already occurs in our state. But I've looked at that, and it turns out Iowa rarely holds back children from 4th grade. From 2009-10 into the 2010-11 school year, we held back 27 children in 3rd grade from going on into 4th grade out of 35,000 children. So we are not holding children back, and yet 31% of our kids in 4th grade are reading below basic. So we've really got to square, as Ralph Smith said, we have got to do what's in the best interest of children. Nobody wants to hold anybody back. If somebody's not reading at that point, I think that may be the best alternative for many children with some exceptions. So with that, I'll stop and turn it over to the rest of the panel.